School violence, along with copycat threats, are a major concern of school systems across America. Taylor, Michigan is no different. The school system recently approved a $1.7 million investment in modern technology and new security systems. Not only is that system going to lock down classes and alert everyone in the district as to what's going on during an emergency, it's also going to alert the Taylor Police Department. That is an important factor in reaction. Reaction time is an important factor here. You're going to find out all about this system from its creator, along with Police Chief John Blair, a major supporter. Next here on Taylor Newsbreak. We'd like to welcome Rob Couturier and Police Chief John Blair to our Taylor studios today to discuss school security and a new Bluetooth lockdown system that was recently approved by the Taylor School District. Rob is the designer of the Smartboot System, a product of the Lockout Company located in Fowlerville. Chief Blair worked closely with the school district and Rob to advocate for this measure, which is expected to be installed throughout the school district this summer. Gentlemen, welcome to the school.
Thank you.
To both the school district and the city of Taylor.
Thank you.
John, let's start with you. Let's talk a little bit about school threats and violence for a moment. You're a longtime law enforcement officer. You have a background in SWAT. What has changed over the years to bring us to this situation from a law enforcement standpoint?
Carl, I think Columbine experience that happened changed police tactics. We used to surround the place, set up perimeters, and call in SWAT and try to negotiate with these people. That no longer works. Now we've taken a much more progressive stance. We're actually entering the building quickly because we know that these moments are saving lives. So we've just changed our tactics from a stand by and wait to a much more aggressive get inside and end the threat.
What about from the other angle? You and I go back a ways. We were in school many moons ago. What has changed in society to bring us to this type of standpoint?
Yeah, and I often say that conflict resolution skills are missing now. What used to be handled by a fist fight, and of course we don't want people fist fighting either, but what used to be handled by that, and when the fight was over, and many times they became friends again, now it's turned to extreme violence. They've turned to a gun or a knife, and those results are much more permanent. So I just think the aggressive manner in which people handle their conflicts has caused a lot of these problems.
You and I have spoken about social media aspects playing into different areas like this. It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. It just exasperates the situation. It perpetuates. Not only is it a phrase that's put out there, but it's there permanently where people can go back and continually refer to it. So yeah, it's magnified the problem.
Rob, tell us about your background, professional expertise.
You know, I really didn't have any professional expertise. I was a dad coming up with an idea to help keep my daughter safe. And we had a tragic thing happen in our family to my eldest daughter, and by the way, she's doing wonderful now. But it affected us deeply, and I went into kind of dad protection mode. Had a relationship with our police chief in our small town where my daughter was attacked, and started asking questions. And when you talk with different law professionals, they're in. They are in when you have an idea and different things like that. And my grandfather was a police chief of Redford Township, which is just a short ride down. That's where I was born and raised. And my father was a fire chief of Redford Township. So I was kind of bred into it in law enforcement and learning all these different things, these tactical things. I chose not to go into law enforcement. But when my daughter was attacked, I responded as any father would. And I invented the original product called the Boot, and there's a meaning behind the name, and if you go on our website you can kind of see that meaning. I don't really like talking too much about it, but I just invented an idea, went to law enforcement all the way through Homeland Security, talking to people, and they helped me invent the product that I have today.
So the Lockout Company itself was created off of this, right?
Yes.
That you just talked about.
Yes.
And naturally, the focus hasn't always been on the schools and education.
No, I mean, it happens everywhere. I mean, we're now very fortunate that we have city buildings using our products. People call all the time to put it in their home. Just the basic boot, just to barricade a door, just to make sure it's extra strong, and extra safe. And so it's really expanded throughout the country.
Wow. John, you and I have spoken numerous times about school violence and threats. I've always felt that educators, and I know I've shared this with you, are rather ill-equipped to deal with today's type of problems. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, not unlike police officers, these educators are dealing with problems that are created outside of school and have been going on for many, many years in these families, and we can't expect neither police nor educators to solve those problems when they pop up. When something violent happens in front of an educator, they're not trained to deal with these people. So it puts them behind a rock and a hard place, and they have my empathy. It's a tough situation for them.
Does this system plug a hole, or does it just bridge a gap that we go to someplace else with it?
Now, this system, in my opinion, is very innovative. It took a lot of steps that were already created and added on to them. Not only does it provide security block at the door itself, but also there's notifications in there. Notifications to the other students, notifications immediately to the police department. Those save those precious seconds, which will in turn save lives.
Rob, as the audience could see, we've filled up our set. You have a tendency to do this to us. Last time you did this was with a taser. But Rob, can you take us kind of a step-by-step and show us what the system does?
Yeah, I sure can.
Okay.
This is just a shortened version, obviously, that we presented this right to Taylor Public Schools and several public schools all over the state. So there's a boot box, and this is mounted on the wall that is right next to the door. And the teacher, basically, it is really this simple. We'll pull the boot, and 3, 2, 1, and it's booted.
Gotcha.
And then with the smart system, it will light up the whole building and notify like this, and verbal. And also, so every room that has a boot in it, they're going to get this message.
Okay.
And then the lights that are throughout the hallways will instantly go on. So in a high school the size of Taylor, it would be about 2 seconds. The whole building would be alerted, and that alert will go to center dispatch or to chief's inner circle here, and they'll actually know exactly where the boot was pulled.
Okay.
In the building.
Okay.
So.
And at that point in time, everybody locks down?
Instantly, yes.
Okay, everybody does. Everybody pulls the boot, inserts it in their door, and locks down.
Yeah, the great thing about our product is walking the buildings and doing all of our research behind the buildings and actually really planning this out. There's additional rooms throughout the school that the doors are unlocked all day, like copy rooms or bathrooms or different things. So if a child or children are stuck out in the hallway, they're listening for the boot to say lockdown.
Okay.
So they can actually run and lock themselves down into that location versus just running down the hallway and trying to exit when they don't know where the shooter is.
The boot is going to be installed in every room of every building, or certain rooms of the buildings, or how do you guys work it?
We've looking at every position that is possible. Obviously, classrooms will be done, offices will be done. It's really difficult. It puts a lot of pressure on administrators because when something like this happens, the administrators want to go and try to help when they're not prepared to handle someone with a gun.
Right.
So they need to know that the training that we're applying and Chief is applying, that they could stay in their office booted down and understand that the kids and the staff are fully trained and understand what to do.
Interesting. John, you're totally supportive of this.
Absolutely, Carl. This buys us that time that we're looking for. Fortunately, all of the downriver communities, we're all trained the exact same way to respond to these active threats. And getting this notification quickly and knowing that our students are locked away safely will buy us that time that we know we need to respond and take care of the situation.
The term lock out versus lock down, using your company's name, is that intentional?
Well, you know, locking people out, locking them out away from danger was kind of our thought.
Right.
And even down to getting the name of the company, we talked to law enforcement to try to use their jargon, use their language of what they would like, and and each district has pretty much fallen in line. But with the smart system, it's smart enough that we can make alterations in the system according to each law professional if they want something changed.
Oh, that's
we can customize it right to their language, right to their technical thoughts and everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Rob, you might want to pull that now.
Okay.
John, when you first saw the program, how many other programs have you seen and things like that?
Countless, Carl.
Countless?
And,
Okay.
most of them will have the physical feature of locking the door down or securing the door, which helps us. What it doesn't do is notify us. What it doesn't do is notify the other students, the other teachers. And I think that is a crucial component that's been missing with a lot of these systems. And the Smartboot system gives us that time and the extra, information technology has been used appropriately to help us.
And we're going to all clear it right now, so you'll
Okay.
see you'll
So we'll
see
be able
this
to-
turn to
okay.
green,
Okay.
and the boot box actually verbally say all clear.
Okay, and this is
So-
going on throughout the building at the time.
At the same time,
Okay.
when law enforcement gets there, they kind of take over, and as you can see,
All clear.
Oh,
the
there we
lights
go.
turn green. All the boot boxes will
clear.
talk and clear everything, and then
All clear.
people can just pretty much rest assured that
clear.
law enforcement did this, and put the boots away, and
It's
they're
amazing.
pretty much done. And when after law enforcement sweep the building, it continues to stay green. They sweep the building, make sure everybody's okay, and then with a very, very simple code that they'll be supplied with, law enforcement, they just reset the system and it's ready to go. Everything will shut right down, and it really gives them full control of the building from start to finish of that lockdown.
Wow, that's fantastic, geez. The department's being trained on this equipment?
Yeah, we constantly have active threat training. Matter of fact, we have some next week as well. We've met with the schools. We've done their training last month, and again next week we have training with them as well. And there's another aspect of this system which Rob didn't talk about, which I will talk about. I know some people think, well, what happens if somebody locks my kid in there and they're doing something terrible to my kid?
Okay.
Well, there's a device that goes with this where we can utilize that. We'll remove that boot and we can make entry into that room.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's a nice little feature. That's something that's really important to us as well. And that's, like I said, no stone has been unturned with this system.
So it really comes down to isolating the threat as best as possible for a limited amount of time so that you can react to it, correct?
Yeah, we use goofy 3Ds, deter, delay, and detect. And this will be the delay part. This will give us that crucial time.
Okay, interesting, geez. What, when it comes to training the staff, educators, what's that involved basically?
It's really relatively easy.
Okay, all right.
When we go through each building, along with the boot, you can see there's a placard, a numbered placard sitting in front of you that has a map of the school and some different things. So when law enforcement gets the alert and they enter into the school, when they look down the hallway at this point, they can't ID a classroom. And or a color or a zone that the building is in. So with the placards that we are installing in all of Taylor schools, that will give them a huge advantage to be able to know where to enter because they'll be marked out properly on maps and color coded. And this is another process that law enforcement taught me to do, which I just implemented on behalf of them, and now they're all over the state.
The system, as we're laying it out here, really activated by a violent threat or act. What about other emergencies? Does this factor into other emergencies?
Yeah, absolutely. You can use it for anything. If we have somebody that commits a violent crime in the city of Taylor and they're off maybe on foot, perhaps, and they're in the area of the school, we can ask them to lock down, and they can still utilize this device. Even though no one is actively in the school, we can get those students in there nice and safely secure for us, and at least eliminate some of that threat to them.
It's amazing. Now this is, what's the cost of this for Taylor Schools?
Well, Taylor Schools is $1.7 million.
Okay.
Now, remember, that's 15 buildings, 14
Gotcha.
to 15 buildings.
Right.
There was some great questions at the board meeting that I presented. As they build new buildings, we can remove the devices into smarts and then to reinstall it into the new building.
Which is nice to know.
Which is
Yeah.
a wonderful thing to know, because they're making that investment, and it could take 2 or 3 years before the new buildings are built or a new building is built, that these kids are still in that building. So we need to protect them.
Right.
So we're able to come in, take everything out, and then just replace it into a new school
Right.
very easily.
Still a large chunk of change for these school districts. How do you address that when they throw that at you?
You know, you really can't put a price on safety.
Right. That's very true.
As Chief said, there are other products out there. Ours is a system, and you can go less expensive. You can buy just the boot. A lot of schools have bought just the boot because that's all I had invented at that
Okay.
point. And now those schools are upgrading and moving in. So it gives schools the opportunity, no matter what, that they can take the basic boot, and then the next year, or if they get a bond that next year, we can move it up to the smart boot,
Right.
and then add placards, and then add things to it as their budget allows. So we're able to work with schools all over the state, that no matter what budget they have.
John, you mentioned Columbine. Let me mention Oxford. How has that mass shooting changed the dynamic here when it comes to your thought process?
Yeah, well, you know, you're looking 20 years later and we're still having these problems, and this one's local, and
Yeah.
it does touch home. I know the athletic director at Oxford. It's a scary thought. I have children myself.
Yeah.
They're in high school now. Some older, but you know, it changes everything, not only as a police officer, but also as a parent. And I agree with Rob, you know, the money does seem like a lot, but how many lives have to be lost? Or how many lives have to be saved for that money to be worth it? Which way do you want to put it? And money well spent, and I just think it's the wave of the future, and I think it's what we need to do.
Have these kind of events, do they force the private sector in these who are involved in these security measures? Do they put you guys into high gear? What happens?
They do put us in the high gear, and schools out there are getting pressure from parents. They're getting pressure from their board. They're getting pressure. You know, we're very lucky. We're very busy. Not only just because of the past shootings, but we've been able to continue moving forward with our company, and we don't cold call schools. We will not call a school until we get law professional or a superintendent to superintendent conversation. We just we don't feel that's our place. But schools are jumping and making decisions really quickly, and instead of really paying attention to the details. That's why I had to give it out to Taylor Schools and Chief. They had so many questions already prepared for me when I walked in to present, that it was very, very nice, because I was prepared for all those questions.
Sure.
And there's other products out there, but there's nothing, as Chief said, nothing out there like ours.
John, let's go back to threats for a minute. I assume the percentage of threats to some type of actual school violence is small.
Absolutely correct,
That's
Carl.
something that I think people have to understand, because you get into it. Every time a school goes into lockdown in Taylor, if you watch social media, people just lose their minds. And I know it has a lot to do with Columbine or Oxford or whatever, but can you put a slightly different spin on that?
Absolutely. We have had more than a dozen school threats since Oxford. 0 of them involved any violence. You know, it's a rough time with this pandemic. Kids are looking for their support systems that they don't have. Some of them are acting out for attention. Some of them are just misconstrued with what they're saying, and it's a problem. So, yeah, it's been different, Carl.
Well, on the one hand, I would assume that's a good thing to know. On the other hand, from your standpoint, specifically law enforcement, that doesn't really help you. If a lockdown has to go into place, you guys are scrambling, right?
Yeah, and, you know, fortunately, we do have part of the Downriver Mutual Aid Pact. We have many support systems in place. The local communities are around, and we treat them the same way they treat us. They will show up when we need them, and we'll show up when they need us.
But there are never-ending lockdowns. I mean, this is really getting tiring it's got to be tiring for you.
Yeah.
Does it seem like almost overdone?
Well, I don't think you can be too careful. I think the mistakes that were made in some of these other places cost lives, and I think you can't be too careful. Now, I know Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy has done a great job when these students or people or any person's making threats to these schools, they're counting them as terroristic threats. I think that's the right approach. I also think these people need help, and they might be screaming for that help. So, but you do have to take them serious because the results could be deadly if you don't.
Taylor schools, really not much different from any other district when it comes?
Yeah, you see it everywhere,
Right.
whether it's Oxford or Taylor or anywhere else. Yeah, this could happen anywhere. We don't stick our head in the sand and think it's someone else's problem.
And Rob, from your product, from the viewpoint of your product, really there's no difference from district to district. Not significant, I'm assuming?
Yeah, no. We have about, I believe it's 9 counties now that every school district in the county. So their county task force team is going in, has our product. So it's really important in part of training. They know what to expect when they roll up. They may have never been in that building, and they're going to roll up and understand what's in the building. It's a lockout system.
Right.
They already know what they're looking for.
Right.
Another piece that is really important to think about, and when you put that 1.7 price tag on things, if you really break it down per person that we're protecting, it's like $187 a person, one-time cost.
Right.
So when you really think about it, you both had children. Would you pay $187 for your child? It really breaks down that simple.
And plus, you take it over the course of the lifespan of the product.
Yeah. So it's upfront. It is, but in the long run, it's not. So people. Different smaller schools are obviously a smaller price tag.
Right.
We've got the opportunity to work with all different sizes of schools.
Chief, when it comes to security and this topic, let's remind the people that you have officers in the school, correct?
Yes, we do. We have a school resource officer that's there full time, correct?
Okay, already. Housed in Taylor High School?
It's out at the high school, correct?
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, and we have one, or we have multiple?
Currently, right now, we have one.
Okay, already. All right. What about private security? Does that factor into this too, into this whole thing? I know Taylor has some private security at some of their entrances and things. I mean, how does that factor in and out of the whole equation?
I mean, they're very important. They're our eyes and ears. They help us out. They can stop things before they happen. I can tell you, unfortunately, though, the only way to stop a person with a gun is another person with a gun.
Right.
And until the school districts or even this country are willing to arm those people inside the schools, which I'm not advocating, you're going to have the police, and this system assists us.
I see, okay. Rob, from a security designer viewpoint, should school buildings across the nation be created in certain templates so security and the reaction to threats could be more easily remedied, from building materials to entranceways to fences to gates to parking lots? I mean, that would be a ridiculously long-term goal at this point, but you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of architectural firms and give us, we're able to give us them our opinions on different things. Now, we're not law enforcement,
Right.
but we have been trained by an awful lot. So they teach us many situations. I'll come in and I'm not afraid to talk about other schools, because I want Chief Blair to give me his ideas, because if I can give his great idea to 300 other schools that we're already working with, he's helping everybody.
Right.
And we're helping everybody, and that's the key, to get that information so these schools can make good decisions on when it does happen.
Is that too much of a pie in the sky thing, Chief, to think about? I mean, if you knew from a law enforcement issue that Taylor High and Northville High and Divine Child High and Okemos High were all very similar in layout and template and design and all that stuff, and all of their features, does that help, or is that, number one, I do think that's pie in the sky because all these buildings are built, but would that be something that would be worth looking into?
Incredible advantage to knowing your turf.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's like playing a game on your home court. You know where that one little board is out of
Sure,
place and the ball doesn't dribble as well.
Right.
You know all those things. So yeah, absolutely, without any question.
Okay, fantastic. We missed anything?
You know, the only thing, and you can kind of see next to Chief Blair is some bulletins that are out there.
Right,
That,
yeah.
You know, Governor Schneider were the original company that got barricading devices allowed
Right.
in the state of Michigan. And then Governor Whitmer stepped up even one farther than that and made laws and very, very stringent things, because schools were kind of grasping at anything they could do to put it in. So licensing and regulatory affairs got involved, and building departments and fire marshals. And my daughter and I were able to speak at the board at the state of Michigan to create the templates. So everything is being put in properly and abides by the law of the state of Michigan.
Fantastic. John, anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to act as Rob's marketing director at all, because as a police officer, we think about these things. This can transition into the corporate world as well. This can be utilized anywhere. Wallside Windows is speaking with us. We're doing some training with them. And you know, these systems would work there, office buildings, any type of scenario. It's buying us time to help you, and that's what we're looking for. So I don't think these are just set for schools. I could see a system comparable to this being placed in the corporate world as well.
I see. What about homes? Anybody got this in there? You naturally do.
We have it at our office. We have it. We have parts of the system at our home.
Okay.
My daughter's home. My son's home.
Sure.
So yeah, we're trying to prepare. When you don't think it could happen in your small little town, like we always thought, an attack to my daughter could never happen.
Sure.
And it did. So it pushes your gas pedal down
Right.
to accelerate, to try to do things what you can do, and that's what we're all about. We're all about trying to help kids. We don't ever look at a $1.7 million win. We look at 1,700 people win. That's how we look at it as a family-owned business. We care about the people, not the price tag. That's not important to us. But to hire good people, good quality people that put around me and around our staff, that's, you know, it's expensive to have that.
Right, exactly.
So we're very proud of what we do every day. Every day we get to affect people's lives and their safety, and that's reward enough for us.
That's what it's all about.
Yes, it
That's
is.
for sure. Well, gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. Rob, John, always good having you on here. John, Rob, very informative.
Thank you.
Really fabulous invention.
Thank you very much.
You know, tremendous, and glad you could come in and spend time in the studio.
Happy to do it.